Open the special meeting of Council today with a prayer. God grant that we who would seek to serve you may have the wisdom of your Spirit, the guiding of your hand, and the grace to serve together for the prosperity of our city, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. And please stand for the national anthem. Australians, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. With golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is girt by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and fair. In history's page, let every state advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair. Please be seated. Good afternoon, councillors. I think we should, first of all, acknowledge the Mayor's absence today, and someone might like to move a leave of absence. Moved Councillor Tozer, seconded Councillor Young. All in favour? That is carried.
Do we need to move an apology for Councillor Castro?
No, we haven't had one. We won't move one as yet. He's possibly running late. It sometimes happens.
No.
This is all in open, Councillor Young. So today we're here to consider repealing the temporary local planning instrument that exists over the Arundel Hills parcel of land. I understand that the Deputy Premier, who is also the Minister for State Development, Infrastructure and Planning, the Honourable Jared Blay, is intending to come down, and that he's hopeful of having a bit of a discussion with community, along with the Honourable Sam O'Connor, who obviously is the Member for Bonnie and the Minister for Housing and Public Works and the Minister for Youth. So I guess before we move to I'll ask the acting CEO to give an overview to you all. It's worth just mentioning that we have had great support from the new government, and we welcome their involvement today. Before I hand over to the acting CEO, I will also acknowledge that there was information distributed to each of us this morning outlining all aspects of the Human Rights Act, and it is the view that we can proceed with the recommendation before us to repeal the TLPI because it is totally compatible with human rights. And now I will go to the acting CEO.
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. Councillors, I won't talk too much today. The report is quite self-explanatory, but I might just go through a bit of the chronology. So councillors would recall on the 4th of September this year, we did receive notification from the former Planning Minister that the government was intending to make the TLPI, which was number 1 of 24 for us, which was the Arundel Hills TLPI. On the 8th of November, which was a couple of weeks ago, our CEO at the time did write to the Deputy Premier and the Minister for State Development, Infrastructure and Planning and the Minister for Industrial Relations requesting support for Council to repeal the TLPI. And on Friday last week, which was the 15th of November, we did receive confirmation from the Minister and the Deputy Premier that Council could, or approval for Council to repeal the TLPI. So what you've got in front of you today is a report which does explain that. The recommendations, I think, are pretty clear. That should be up on the screen soon. There is a process that we have to follow after today. Once we get Council's endorsement, we have to gazette that and notify that in the Gold Coast Bulletin. We will obviously take all those steps to repeal that and ensure that everything under the legislation is covered from that perspective. I'm happy to answer other questions, Madam Acting Mayor.
Thank you. So, councillors, I'll go to you. Are there any questions? If not, do I have a mover for the motion? Councillor Hamill, seconded by Councillor Wilkinson. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Hamill?
Madam Acting Mayor, I would. Do I need to wait for the full recommendation to be on the screen?
I think that would make sense so that our gallery can see exactly what we are trying to achieve today.
Through you, Madam Acting Mayor, we've just had a little bit of computer issues, so Anya's just typing up the recommendations for us now.
Fine. Thank you to the gallery too for joining us today. And I see our new minister in the front row there. Welcome. Councillors, while that's happening, I'll just mention to you that before we started this meeting, we had a conversation about an earlier conflict of interest that I had, a declarable conflict of interest. The advice received today has been that this has absolutely nothing to do with that first conflict. So for anyone who might have been confused about my chairing this meeting, and I know that the members of the community were aware of my original conflict, but it does not apply today according to advice that we have received prior to the meeting. So I just thought it sensible to clarify that in case there was any confusion. We're nearly there. I think you're good to go, Councillor Hamill. Please open debate.
Again, Madam Acting Mayor, I'd acknowledge our support staff and sometimes the stress we put on them when things don't work. Bloody computer systems. Madam Acting Mayor, Deputy Premier, Minister O'Connor, fellow councillors, members of the Arundel Hills Action Group and greater Arundel Hills community. It is my pleasure to stand today and move this recommendation. A recommendation that will see the repeal of the temporary planning instrument over the Arundel Hills Golf Course. Crisis. Crisis is not a word to be used lightly. It is a word that should truly be reserved for the most grave of situations. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a housing crisis. The issue is very real, and the impacts of this crisis are being felt right across not just our city, but the entire state and indeed nation. We are in a crisis because of an absolute failure of successive state governments to plan for population growth. While it seemed easy for the previous state government to blame councils, let's be clear about who failed to do their job. The previous state government. In any crisis, it is critical for calm heads to prevail, for all key stakeholders to be part of the solution, for a coordinated, realistic, well-planned and extremely well-communicated approach of how we intend to tackle the crisis. That is not what we have seen so far with this housing crisis. What we've seen is a lack of serious planning, state and federal governments making knee-jerk policy decisions, setting completely unrealistic dwelling targets in unachievable timeframes. We've seen them excluding or simply ignoring the input of key stakeholders, an absolute lack of coordination across all levels of government and industry to tackle this crisis. I would sum up the response so far to the housing crisis as being fairly pathetic. What we've seen here is a great example of this at Arundel Hills. A knee-jerk decision from a failing government to a crisis it is at most to blame for. A knee-jerk decision that, instead of helping the dwelling supply issue, has just wasted time and resources that could have been far better directed. State resources wasted that could have been directed to items like helping us get amendments through the previous city plan. State resources that could have been directed to planning work on the light rail corridor. State resources that could have been directed to early works on our new planning scheme, including areas like east-west corridors. Instead, those state resources were directed to a random golf course. A golf course where the owner paid $17 million unconditional. A value, I'm told, is double what anyone else was willing to pay. A golf course where the applicant's consultants were more than happy to be honest with people and say, we don't really care about council assessment because we're going to the state. They made that clear from day one. Today, we are joined by the Deputy Premier, who holds the role of Planning Minister, and also our local MP, Sam O'Connor, who holds the Ministry for Housing. Gentlemen, today I once again make the same request I did to the previous Minister in Government. Don't make knee-jerk decisions and cut local governments out of the process. Work with local governments. Work with the relevant industry groups and key stakeholders to develop a coordinated, well-documented and realistic plan of how we tackle this crisis together. This city stands ready to lead the charge by committing to having a new planning scheme in place before the end of 2027. A time frame that simply cannot be achieved if we do not have genuine buy-in from the new state government. A time frame that cannot be achieved if state resources are squandered on random TLPIs. A random TLPI that still would have delivered less than 1% of the housing the city needs. Direct your state resources to work with this council on changes to our planning scheme that can set us on the path to delivering 160,000 new dwellings over the next 20 years. Friends, while the removal of the TLPI is an important step, we still have an active appeal against the original refused DA. Today, as Chair of Planning, I make the same commitment I've made before publicly, that this council will continue to defend our position. We will see the job through. One step at a time, however. Let's get on with the next step and let's get rid of this TLPI.
Thank you, Councillor Hamill. Are there any questions, or would anyone else like to speak? Would anyone like to speak against the motion before us? Would anyone like to speak for the motion? If not, I might go to Councillor Wilkinson. Would you like to close debate?
Thank you, Madam Acting Mayor. And I want to point out, thank you, Councillor Hamill, for also allowing me to close debate today. I'm making this contribution to today's debate as this matter is of profound importance that has deeply affected my local community. Today, this council has the opportunity to take decisive and just action by repealing the TLPI currently imposed on the Arundel Hills Country Club site. I urge all councillors to support this repeal, as the TLPI should have never been introduced in the first place. From today's special council meeting, several positive outcomes stand out should we repeal this TLPI. I will highlight three key benefits. The first, the community. I ask all councillors to look at the public gallery where our dedicated local residents sit. Individuals who have tirelessly advocated for their community throughout this process. These locals have expressed their devastation, disappointment and heartbreak over this decision they view was a profound, damaging thing. They understand the immense impact this TLPI would have on the character and amenity of our community, as well as the environment, traffic and vital sport and recreational land. The numbers speak for themselves. Almost 2,000 community submissions were received during the TLPI consultation, with an overwhelming 97% opposing this TLPI. Yet, despite this strong and clear feedback from the former minister announced on the 4th of September, her intentions to proceed without adequately addressing the community's concerns in the published Statement of Reasons. This was not just a misstep, it was a devastating blow for our community. To my community, I applaud your professionalism, respect, and unrelenting spirit in standing up for what is right. Second, re-empowering local governments. Repealing this TLPI would reassert council's authority and responsibility over town and land planning, a responsibility entrusted to us by the state government. If these powers are continually overridden by the state intervention, as happened here, it undermines the very framework designed to ensure growth is managed effectively and appropriately. Our city plan exists for a reason, to guide sustainable and sensible development, and this council must be allowed to fulfil its duties without unwarranted interference. Finally, a renewed partnership with the state government. This repeal signals a turning point and restores faith in the partnership between local and state governments. The new Deputy Premier and Planning Minister, the Honourable Jared Bligh MP, has shown true leadership in providing his written approval to reverse this TLPI, and I commend his commitment to honouring promises made during the election. Likewise, the Honourable Sam O'Connor, our local MP, has been a fierce advocate for the community, ensuring this issue received the attention it deserved, pushing back against the inappropriateness of this instrument from the very beginning. I thank them both for also being here in the public gallery today. I know our community is grateful for them being present. This decision is a testament to what can be achieved when the state government works constructively with councils, working with us to pursue appropriate growth opportunities, not inappropriate ones like this TLPI, while simultaneously respecting locals' needs and concerns. I am optimistic this collaborative approach will continue, delivering better outcomes for our communities and avoiding the chaos and overreach that I believe was evident throughout this TLPI process. In summary, repealing this TLPI is not just a step forward, it is a correction of something that should have never been put on the table. It acknowledges the unwavering voice of our community, reinforces the essential role of local government in planning, and lays the foundations for a stronger partnership with the state government. Let us seize the opportunity to act decisively, take a firm, united stance of repealing this inappropriate TLPI. So again, I will say that I encourage all councillors to support today's recommendation to repeal this TLPI.
Thank you. Very well done, Councillor Wilkinson. That's that. We'll take the vote, and I think we'll call a division. All in favour?
Acting Mayor Gates, Councillor Young, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Curtis, Councillor Hemmel, Councillor Fowler, Councillor Wilkinson, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Martin, Councillor Doran, Councillor Tozer, Councillor Marshall, Councillor O'Neill.
And the TLPI is repealed. I think as Councillor Lacastre hasn't arrived, Councillor Tozer, would you like to move an apology for him?
Apology for Councillor Castro.
Could I have a seconder, please? Councillor Taylor. All in favour? It's a shame, but otherwise unanimous. So thank you all for your attendance, and thank you, community, for the work that you've done, the associations you've built with both your divisional councillor, your state member and our chair of planning, and for supporting the council right through this process. Thank you very much. And at 13:21, the meeting is adjourned. Finished.